Alright everyone, welcome back to another session of weekly market analysis. We missed out on Tuesday for various reasons, but I wanted to make sure we had coverage this week, especially since we had FOMC yesterday and we also had Apple earnings today and quite some interesting earnings also that happened throughout the week. So I didn't want to miss out this week. So, that's why we're having it a couple of days late, but here we are. So let's start out with the spies. Last week when we met, one of the things that we have looked at is in the recent uptrend, the market is having some downward pressure because we see lower highs, continuously lower highs, and continuously lower lows. So in that regard, in the recent move down, we went to our green to green zone. We retraced not just to the 38.2, we retraced all the way to the 61.8. Right? It didn't quite touch it, but close enough to that area. So I was already having some bias to the downside. And when we talked about some entry last week, some upside entry, because we were at our green to green on the monthly trend, right? Going back here, when we are looking at this monthly, we came down to this zone. So this dash line here, that's our monthly, and it also coincided with a it's kind of hard to see, but we have a demand zone here. It coincided with that demand zone, so it was kind of a good idea to attempt to go to the bull side. However, as we discussed, very tight monitoring because we still have this downward pressure, right? This downward pressure. So we'll talk about this trade that you had in place, Manny, did a bit later. But based on what we discussed, I think I know the outcome. So from that then is as we keep looking at this downtrend in our green to green, because we captured the 38.2, again, in my trading, I've already moved it, but for this training purposes, I had not moved it yet for you. So here's our new fib in that down trend. Again, we want to capture green to green to the downside, but it's not giving us any entry to the downside. It looks like, based on yesterday's results of Fed saying we're not going to increase rates, based on various other earnings that are showing some strong market outlook, it looks like the market wants to go higher. Not fully there, right? We're not fully there. I don't want to mislead us and say we're at an area where we're comfortable to go to the upside. Two things have to happen. One, we have to clear this supply zone. We have to clear this. And by clear, what I mean is we use it as support and we're heading up north from there. That's one thing that has to happen. The other thing that has to happen is in this recent down move in our fib retracement, we have to capture the 78.6. Again, same concept. We have to go above it, use it as support, and go from there, right? So I want to see both of this happen. Of course, the 78.6 will happen first. When that happens, usually I'm a little bit cautious because it's right against this supply zone. So even if it uses it as support, we might get stuck in here, right? We might get stuck in here to form additional lower lows and lower highs. So I'm very, very cautious here in this trade. But if we look at here, this sideways action when we got down here and price decided to gap up, this is a good sign. Let's say short term, right? Because we're talking about trading, right? We're not talking about investing. We're talking about trading. So short term, there's an opportunity to go to the upside because this gap didn't close, right? Price just kept going up. Gapped up, came inside the gap, sideways movement. This is where I took a trade, right? For me, this was a beautiful setup, this sideways movement. A little bit outside here, capturing our so I'll just put it here so you can see, but so far where we are is, you know, outside of our initial 2-to-1, right? When we got up this morning, it was a good sign to exit. I actually took some exit earlier yesterday when the Fed's announcement came and we pushed up. We were closing near the high of the day. I just decided to take some off and left some runners, but here's my 2-to-1, right? It's not always that, because there's some downward pressure and I see this as potential area of resistance. I said, hey, I'm okay to just book a little bit less profit than I normally want. But we have a small runner that goes up. It's always okay to have a small runner, and it's sometimes you miss it, right? You can tell me, why didn't you go for your 2-to-1 because we have a nice reversal. I don't know that, right? There's a lot of pressure to the downside. Even what he said, like what Powell said, was a good signal for the market. There's still a lot of pressure to the downside. So I was more cautious. But here now I can relax with the remaining position. So again, if we go to the Qs, it's a similar story that played out in the Qs. Nothing really different. But last week when we had our meeting, I said, if we break this pennant, we're going to the downside, right? So because we had some downward pressure, this was against our first green zone. We break to the downside. This is another trade, right? This is another trade when I knew we broke it and the next bar stayed below it. So I used the bottom of this bar for my entry. Stop right above the 38.2. Targeting my two never came. Two never came. Actually, my exit came when this higher low formed here. This is when I knew I had to exit. So somewhere here, somewhere in the one, I think it was about 1-to-1 ratio when I had to exit. Well, again, why? Because higher low here, right? Higher high, higher low forming, so I had to exit. It's kind of tricky, right? When we have different news coming and but short-term trades, when you see the setup, right? We talked about this setup. If this breaks, we go to the downside. And one of the things, the exit point also, that when I said higher low, one of the other exit points, if you recall from our fibs, when we go green to green zone, we exit at -272 and then -618, right? Those are our exit points. So when price stalls at the first exit points and it decides not to continue, even though it didn't give me my 2-to-1 risk reward, I still had to take this exit. Right? Too much confluence for me to ignore this and be caught on the wrong side, because then, 2 days in a row, Wednesday, Thursday, that whole position got clobbered. Right? That's why we take a lot of the analysis into the picture. It's not just, hey, if I don't get the 2, I exit. If I don't care if I get the 2 or not. Sometimes you even exit at a loss, right? I mean, but you minimize the loss. You don't go all the way to your stop. So the setup has been great. On the Qs, where this didn't go all the way inside the 39.2, so the Qs, my fib remains unchanged. Now we're in that green to green. but we're having some very strong upward movement. What my expectation is, we're going to struggle when we get to these areas. If we're going to continue that upward movement, 78.6 and this supply zone, two areas we have to look out for. So this gives us at least some expectation now over the next couple of days, even though the futures are saying a little bit flat. When the market opens, we have to see what it gives us, right? Maybe we stall at the 78.6 and we're gonna go back down. Maybe we clear it, but then stall at the supply zone. We have to take that into the picture. Both of these. In the SPYs, the 78.6 and the supply zone is very, very close together. So it might just happen one shot. But here we have a little bit of room to play with. So if we want to take a position to the upside, I think we've missed it. I think the position is, as I was exiting this, I thought about taking the opposite position, which I didn't. So when you had this flag here, so there was an entry to be made here, which I didn't take, right? Because I took it on the SPY side. So I didn't feel like I had to take it on both sides, but same play. And if we go all the way to that 78.6, if it gives us there, if somebody took this position, fantastic position, like 3.2 to 1 risk reward. Very good positions. So I think we missed any new entry unless we have here this. This is where I would consider a new entry if we get our candlestick pattern, like hammer, railroad tracks, engulfing, or a consolidation, right? A flag pennant formation here. We take it to the upside. If price wants to stall here and use it as resistance, then we take it here. Right? We take it here. So this is our market for this week. The excitement part was this move to the upside. With this, all of this excitement, we have to recall when we see headwind, could something trigger the market to go down when we reach to that headwind, or maybe even prior to that headwind? And I'll bring up Apple. I don't know what I typed there. If we look at the extended hours, it doesn't look good for Apple. It's kind of an ugly chart here. So could this bring down the market? You see how it shot up and then it decided to come back down. So I'm gonna just take these out because I haven't done any deep analysis on Apple recently. So I'm just taking out all drawings. Apple for me is a buy and hold kind of position, so I don't analyze it for trade purposes. SPYs and Qs give me enough trades. I don't worry about other kind of trades. So here, because of this move, the futures, even though they're flat, later on in the evening, as we get close to the morning hours, we might see some action. So I want to be a little bit cautious on where the Qs or the SPYs will head, because Apple is heavy in both of those. This is what I see. Any questions? Any thoughts?
On the SPY entry, Benny, I just wanted to confirm, because when I was looking at that, I know we're not doing reversal entries quite yet. We're just kind of speaking to it, but I wanted to get your thoughts on, like, where did you feel that reversal entry came from? because as I was looking at it, I was just seeing so much downside pressure, like just those big wicks pointing down, almost like inverse hammers on that push up. Like every time it would push up, it strongly push back down, and then it kind of just struggles and then it go up. But I just thought because of that, it just showed so much downside pressure that it made me kind of just wonder, as you look at reversals, do you look for like a stronger momentum, or kind of what made you enter those reversal plays?
So you're talking about this trade here?
Yeah, so that trade, if you kind of get a little closer, you'll see that there's a lot of inverse hammers forming. Like the day would open, it would gap up, and then there would just be a strong push down. Yeah, I think right now you can't see it because we have the after hours.
Oh, let me take out the after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think if you take that out, you just see those heavy like topside candles with
Yeah.
the
So yes, I agree. So I think as I said earlier, what I saw as a potential entry is when we gapped up here and we remained kind of flat and we stayed up. I think I used the high here for my entry.
Got it. Okay.
Right, because now we're forming higher lows, gap up, higher lows. We didn't close this gap. Right, this is it's a bit tricky when I say this is not a reversal play, because two things that I will show you. On a monthly, we're in an uptrend, right? This is in an uptrend, and we're in our still green to green area, right? So when I looked at, we are still above this green, right? We came below it for a little bit, but we didn't come quite as close to the 50%. We just came down a little bit, and this is our green to green zone, right? In green to green zone, I'm comfortable to take an entry. But the reason why it's tricky is we still have this downward pressure, right? We still have this lower highs and lower lows that continue to haunt us. So with that in mind, at this green to green zone, I take a trade, right? Those are for me, that's my sweet spot. Green to green, this is where my success rate comes. I don't take it at 23.6. Right, Manny, I see you like to take a lot of trades at 23.6. I just shy away from those because for me and my style of trading, I want those green to green. And so when I get this green to green, a gap up, and the market is saying I want to push up for a little bit, I'm just gonna let it ride, right? And then I exited too early. Why? Because just as you said, we have this downward pressure. We have this downward pressure. I saw this resistance. I exited early. Some of the portion. So that's how I look at it. That's how I take those trades.
Got it. Okay. Thanks, Benny.
Okay. Yeah. So now I want to talk about this trade.
Yeah,
I'll tell you, but this trade, I mentioned last week that it was a great trade, right? I liked this trade. It's the same trade I took here. Just because it didn't work out here doesn't mean it doesn't work out again, right? Doesn't mean you don't take the trade. Ideally, right? The reason I left this here and I want to talk about it is when you get stopped out, ideally you take the trade again, right? Ideally, that's what you do. Because these trades, we don't know that they work 100% of the time, right? We don't know that. We see, okay, green hammer, I take it, fantastic. Oh, it didn't work out the way I expected it. I got stopped out. I repeat the cycle. As long as I'm in my expected area, right? As long as I'm not outside of the boundaries, I'm not taking a trade for the sake of taking a trade. It still meets my criteria. We have another gap here. We didn't get quite close to that gap. I was cautious, right? I was cautious because there's this gap and this gap. If my stop was below this area of value, right, the significant area of value, which was inside this gap, I knew inside this gap, I knew that, and I took the trade. That's okay, right? And this trade, believe me, I still believe it's a good trade. Green for me, it's green to green. Knowing that there's downward pressure, you took a chance, you took it. That's fine.
Yeah.
But I think the mistake is not taking the second trade. And it's easier not to take the second trade because then fear kicks in. Oh, I was wrong here. What if I'm wrong again? Right? And you can be wrong 5 times in a row, but the goal is over 20, 30, 40, 50 trades is to be positive. Right? So don't let those I'm wrong once take you down. Just I'm wrong once, I'm going to do it again.
Yeah, definitely. I was doing good for a little bit, and
Yeah.
then very quickly started turning. So
Yeah,
thankfully,
exactly.
that and then that morning, as soon as the stop loss hit on that Friday, I got stopped out, or Thursday. So it was a good learning experience.
Yeah. Any other trade? Any new trades after that?
No, because it kind of became reversal, and I know we're staying away from those a little bit right now. So I've just been focusing on the continuation. So I'm hoping we'll see what happens tomorrow, as we get closer to that 78.6 and that supply zone. If we get a big inverse hammer rejection at that top, that'd be a good sign to see if we can get some downward pressure to close out today, especially with the Apple earnings that you were just mentioning. So we'll see how the market reacts. But besides that, I didn't take any other trades.
Yeah, I'm kind of torn how the market thinks about it because futures said nothing, right? Even though Apple was earnings sucked, futures said nothing. Right? So I'm kind of surprised by that. So we'll have to see, right? Once the market opens, we'll have to see how they react.
Yeah,
Right?
I feel like
And yeah,
if there's no like downside pressure, that's a pretty revealing sign that maybe there's another leg up.
yeah, yeah. Even looking at Amazon, Microsoft after that earning, they didn't react to Apple's earning, right? Even Alphabet didn't react to that earning. Like their earning was bad, but they didn't react to Apple's earning, which is kind of a good sign for the overall market for the bulls. They say, okay, it's just Apple. I think what's happening is the other markets like Roku is heavy in advertising, and they're saying ad revenue has not slowed down. Right? That's the reason why their price shot up like this. And when you see that from Roku, then everybody else is going to benefit from that, right? And you'll just say Apple. It's just I didn't hear the earnings. I don't know why Apple went down. But it looks like the rest of the market is ignoring the Apple result. Right? Even DoorDash just amazingly shot up. So lots of opportunities coming up, but let's just be mindful of where we are with our headwinds, right? Headwinds. We want tailwind, but this pushing it up, but then that's might be short lived. We have a little bit more room in the queues for that to happen. All right.
Okay.
Any other ticker we should look at before we wrap up?
No, not that I can think of.
You have something in mind?
Yeah, I was gonna say I saw some activity in Tesla over the past week or so. Just a lot of swings.
You know, Tesla is one of those I don't like to talk about a lot because Tesla is so expensive. Not everybody wants to get into those expensive plays. But
Yeah.
if you are on the right side, it's fantastic. But as you can see, even in the last few weeks, it's very hard to know which is the right side when there's a lot of news-driven things that Tesla reacts to.
Yeah.
So even if the chart says great, let's go, it's a big size risk. But I like Tesla. Yeah. I think it wants to capture this gap in the short term. It wants to capture this gap.
Mhm.
Let's see. Let's see. Okay, let's call it a day. Thanks for joining today.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is that for the